Striking Gold, the Mother Lode landscape. It's not the show about topography, but about who is atop the Mother Lode League. Just went through week 2 of Mother Lode League play. Sonora was on a bye. Somerville traveled to Argonaut, and Amador traveled to Calaveras. And the Amador-Calaveras game, I had it as my game of the week last week. And, well, it definitely proved that it was the game of the week within the two.
Absolutely. I mean, it came down to the last possession, kind of what we expected it to do. A little higher scoring, I think, than we expected, but at the end, we kind of felt like it could go either way, and Calaveras came out with a victory.
And Calaveras against Somerville the week before lost 35-7. Amador, this was their first league matchup, in which Amador, you look back at their schedule, had a really, I don't want to say easy, but just the way they scored, the way they played, it made it look like they were just such a better team. Then they travel into league play, and Calaveras takes advantage of them. But there's one thing that we know about Amador through all of their games, no matter who they played, and that one issue, turnovers.
Yeah, absolutely. They had a whole bakery going on last week. I mean, they turned over the ball over 6 times. And we talked about it the week before when they lost to Woodland Christian. They turned the ball over 4 times in the first half. They had turned the ball over a lot against Union Mine. They lost that game. So 3 games now, a bunch of turnovers, turns into losses each time for Amador. So big thing you got to take care of is holding on to the football. Can't score if you don't hold on to the football. And ultimately that cost Amador in the end.
And Calaveras continues to trend upwards in just in gameplay alone, and maybe in the power rankings that we'll get to later. But Calaveras taking down Amador is a huge upset to the entire Mother Lode League. We know Sonora's at 1, Somerville's at 2, and we've had Amador at number 3 for the last 5 or 6 weeks once they started winning a few of those games. So now Calaveras taking down Amador, which was pretty much a lock at number 3 for half the season. It stirs things up for the Mother Lode.
No, absolutely. And like it really comes down to Calaveras ran the ball for 361 yards. Amador ran the ball for 70. Amador threw the ball for 216 yards, kind of what we expect. Calaveras for 19. So it was a passing game of Amador versus the run game of Calaveras. Calaveras ends up with 380 yards, Amador 286. That doesn't look as, it's crazy, but the 6 turnovers is the thing on the stat line that just jumps out at you. All that being said, though, Amador had a chance to tie the game up in the last minute, and Calaveras' defense made the play to stop them. So Calaveras kind of does what they do. Offense got going, but the defense saves the day again for Calaveras and the Redhawks.
And you look at those turnovers, Amador should have won that game. It's not easy to turn that ball over 6 times, and you think about it, you take one of those away, could have tied it up. You take 2 away, 4 is pretty much their average from what we've seen. Yeah. So take 2 away, they could have easily won that game, but turnovers is what's going to kill them for the rest of the season. And you look at the scoring as well, Amador was up 14-7 at the end of 1, and then they each scored a touchdown in the second. Going into the third, Calaveras retaliated, got 13-7, and that final touchdown in the fourth quarter was the only score from Calaveras, and that's how it ended, 34-27 Calaveras.
Absolutely, and I mean, we got to talk to a couple players or fans after the game on our way home last week, and they were from Amador, and they were pretty devastated. I mean, they felt like they were in the game the whole time. They didn't think that they could lose to the Calaveras. But again, when you turn the ball over 6 times, it's a great equalizer. Even if you have a better team, you lose a turnover battle, -5, you're going to lose most of the time.
This was also the game that we both had the same score prediction for. We had 28-14. I was going to change my score, then you decided to change it before I had the chance. You went 28-21 Amador. I stay with 28-14 Amador. But Calaveras pulls off the victory, so our predictions don't matter. Congratulations to Calaveras, too, because it was just one that we didn't really expect, and they showed up that game.
No, absolutely. And what it does, that gets in that 3rd win. And so as soon as the game got over, we saw it, I started texting with our buddy from Guy Dossie from the Calaveras Enterprise. I said, hey, you realize if they win one more game, they become playoff eligible. Now, will they get in there? We don't know. But 4 wins get you in the playoff conversation. And he goes, just think about how things have gotten better and built all year. That'd be a great thing for them just to get in the playoffs, even if they don't do anything in the playoffs, they feels like they're trending in the right direction. They have a difficult game this week, but then end the season against Argonaut, which is a team I think that they can hold their own against. So it's definitely possible that they get to that 4-win plateau and get eligible at least for a chance to be talked about for the playoffs. We'll see how that plays out in the next couple weeks, though.
So since we both guessed Amador, no points will be awarded in our contest. But now coming up to Somerville at Argonaut. Argonaut is a team that only has won one game. And we knew this going in there. We thought Somerville was going to travel out there to Jackson, dominate on every part of the field. But Somerville, they get the kick return. They march it down the field, hand it off to Orlando Lopez for his 5th carry of the season. Fumbles it on the sideline. Argonaut gets it back, says it's senior night. We need to take advantage of this. Goes down and scores. Has a lead on Somerville 7-0. At the half, 14-7. And the Somerville fans were absolutely shocked. Argonaut was loving it. Second half didn't go so well for Argonaut, but just having that 7-0 lead and keeping it close within 2 quarters, something that Somerville hasn't seen since Dos Palos.
No, absolutely. And I don't know if that's a Somerville coming out and maybe a little overconfidence or didn't travel well, or Argonaut being senior night, they were playing out of their mind. They actually had a chance to score again at the end of the half and just kind of fumbled the ball out of bounds and then kind of messed up the possession down inside the 5. So Argonaut, hey, hats off. They came out and played in the first half, and then in the second half, bad snap on the first possession gave Somerville basically a touchdown on 2 plays later from the 5-yard line. Somerville scored again on the next possession, and then it was pretty much over at that point. It was Somerville just kind of pulling away, and then Argonaut scored late at the end to make it look a little better. But really, Somerville kind of did what we expected them to do in the second half. I think they kind of woke up at halftime. But shout out to Seth Mitchell, the Argonaut quarterback. He had a day. Okay, from Washington the week before against Sonora, where they couldn't get anything right, to the team that we saw last week against Somerville. It was like a whole different team. So he had a great day. Some of the offensive linemen for Argonaut did really well opening holes for him. They just didn't do it consistently enough, and that's what cost them the victory against Somerville this week.
They were just about even in yards between the two teams. Somerville had 335 yards in the game, which is fairly low for them. They're usually more around that 400 mark, so about 70 short. They did have their struggles in the first half, though, and really brought it in the second, so that's where they gained most of it back. Argonaut, 307 yards. And they didn't do too bad in passing either in the last few drives, in the fourth quarter. Yeah. They really started to pass a little bit more. They felt the urgency and said, we got to work on these plays and get it done. So Seth Mitchell started to roll out, try looking at those passes, but the Somerville defense stood still and stopped a lot of big plays from happening. With that, Somerville also on third down. Jeremy, I want you to guess. Third down conversions. Somerville, 1, how many? And then 2, how many did they get across?
I'm going to say they were probably, just being at the game, I'd say they were probably 6 of 14.
5 of 6.
Oh, okay. Well,
so one getting to third down to begin with didn't happen at all.
Right.
They did have 2 turnovers as well, so they gave up the ball twice. True. But 5 of 6,
No, that's impressive. That's a good percentage. I mean, for sure. I thought they, just going back, I felt like they didn't convert that much, but. I mean, 5 of 6 is great. You live for that, right? That's what you want. And again, now, like you said, some of these possessions and then some of those numbers skewed because they had a 5-yard touchdown drive, okay?
Right.
And then they had a 20-yard touchdown drive, and their special teams unit set them up in field position 3 times in Argonaut territory. So you're not going to have those, hey, we had 500 yards of offense. No, you only had 300 because you only had to go 40 yards and score. Right. So it kind of skews that a little bit. But, for what you said, I thought Argonaut's defense played okay most of the day, and especially in the first half did really well. And then the special teams and defense kind of created some problems in the second half for Argonaut, and then it kind of fell apart for him.
Bryson Benitez kicked one into the end zone for his first touchback of the season. 5 of 6 on third down, 2 turnovers, and allowing 21 points as well. There's a lot of firsts or new things to Somerville that happened in this game, and it came against an unlikely opponent of the Argonaut Mustangs.
Yeah, and like I said, Argonaut played tough for the first half, and they made some plays, and Mitchell was able to just run that little quarterback power convincingly and strong and make some plays the guys missed. And he eventually put it in the end zone a couple times against Somerville. In the end, I don't think Somerville was ever really concerned in the second half of the score because they kind of knew, okay, we were up by 3 or 4 scores. But at the end of the day, Argonaut got on the scoreboard. They did what they had needed to do. Can that lead to something positive next week for Argonaut, or this week rather, for Argonaut against Valley Christian when they come back out of league play? We'll see how that goes. It's Argonaut's last home game, so we'll kind of see how that plays out as well.
You thought 56-0. I thought 49-0. And with the point system, I had somebody ask about the point system last week, and they were a little bit confused on it. But it's 1 point for guessing the correct team, and then 1 point for being closer to the actual score. And now, through the season, we haven't had one specifically like this, but 49-0. I'm technically just a tad bit closer to that official score. You're still ahead on the season. We only have a few weeks left. So the one extra point for this week will go to me. But Jeremy, you still are ahead by a few points, and
that's all right, as it should be. Like I say every time, that's the way it should go.
A lot of gameplay left.
Absolutely.
And before we get into the Week 9 preview, we do want to thank Meeting Rooms On Demand. Go to meetingroomsondemand.com. If you've noticed our most recent setup, we're not in the Sonora Conference Center like we usually are, and that's because people are booking it at meetingroomsondemand.com.
Which is great. We love that.
Phenomenal.
We have to use our alternate location, which is okay.
Right, so meetingroomsondemand.com, 4 unique rooms in downtown Sonora. If you go back and look at past episodes, you can see a little bit of that, or you can look at all the other locations that Meeting Rooms On Demand has available to you as well. meetingroomsondemand.com. And now, Week 9. We're almost at the end of the season. League play is right in the middle, and this is where teams can make it or break it for
absolutely. This is going to be a huge week.
Playoffs and for league.
Absolutely. Huge week, big games. We're going to find out a little bit about some of the league opponents this week in the games, matchups. And looking forward to it.
Usually for the teams in Tuolumne, Sonora, and Somerville, they'll have one game at Argonaut and then one game at home against Amador, or vice versa. This year for Somerville, traveling out 2 weeks in a row to both Argonaut and Amador, and that's where Somerville travels this week. 6-1 to the Amador Buffaloes. 4-3. Amateurs are on a 2-game losing streak. They had the big preseason wins versus Stone Ridge, Rio Vista, and Forest Hill, and Somerville only lost to Dos Palos.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's more the same this week. I think Somerville's defense is going to cause problems for Amador. Look for Amador to turn the ball over again, and I don't think it's going to be 6 times this time, but I do think they turned the ball over a few times. Amador's passing attack versus Somerville's run attack is a kind of the matchup. I think even though Amador has some weapons and has some offensive line guys that are pretty good size in it, I just don't think they have enough weapons to match up with Somerville. I think Somerville has more, and I think Somerville comes in and then just kind of has a better road trip, and I think they jump on Amador early, and then I don't think Amador can handle the onslaught that's coming. And so I have Somerville winning 35-21.
Okay, and Somerville, they've ran their normal offense the entire season. They haven't had any troubles except a little bit against Dos Palos. I don't want to say there was troubles, but it just took them a little bit longer, so they didn't have as many possessions. But every other game, they've had their normal offense. We saw their defense had some slight trouble against Argonaut, but that doesn't come into play this week. Amador's a heavy passing team, and that's not going to matter. They want to get inside a little bit more, be more aggressive than what we saw against the Mustangs, but it's not going to matter as much. It's going to be the secondary that really needs to do the work for the defensive side. But with that, Amador's turnover problem, I think Somerville's going to stick with their 42 points on average per game. And Amador, they're explosive, but they also have that issue. They're explosive, they have the issue, and after losing to Calaveras, I think they want to come and try to prove themselves, and I think they can get 17 points on Somerville. So 42-17.
And I think the key to the game here we go, ready? Mm-hmm. Give you one. I think Bryce Roth is going to cause problems for the Amador offensive line. I think he gets a sack, maybe 2. Might get a strip fumble as well. I think he's the key to watch for Somerville Friday night against Amador. Yes, the defense backs have to make plays, but I think Rathmo putting pressure on the quarterback is going to be the kind of one thing Amador's not really ready for.
And I would love to see that. Rathmo gets into the backfield. I think he's the leader on the team, 4 sacks as well, and he has caused a few fumbles.
Yep.
Just from behind, quarterback never saw him coming. And with as many pass attempts that Amador deals with, it's a very big possibility.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think he becomes a problem in the backfield for Amador.
Now, moving back to Argonaut, they are just out of league play. They will go against Valley Christian at home, in which Valley Christian stands at 5-2. Argonaut 1-6 after the loss to Somerville.
Yeah, and this is an interesting game because Argonaut, 2 weeks ago I saw them, and I would have picked Valley Christian to just come in and beat Argonaut. I saw Argonaut kind of get some things rolling last week against Somerville. Now, granted, they still gave up a bunch of points and they lost. But I don't really like Valley Christian's strength of schedule. They see, look at the opponents, and they're it's not like they're 5-2 and they beat all these teams. So I just don't trust Valley Christian. So I think Argonaut, Seth Mitchell goes out, does this thing. I think he has a huge night again. I think he scores 3 times, and I think Argonaut wins 28-21.
Okay, and Argonaut, they're on a 4-game losing streak. Valley Christian's on a 4-game winning streak. And I agree. Seth Mitchell's going to go out there. Prather's going to go out there. They said, we put up 21 points against one of the top teams in D6. We can do that again against the Valley Christian team. But then their defense isn't going to think the same thing. 42-21 Valley Christian.
Okay, I can see that.
The run seemed promising last week, but they need to spread the ball a little bit more for Argonaut. And for Valley Christian, they're slightly leaning on the passing side heavily more, but they're pretty much a balanced offense. They have 4 players at 200 rushing yards on the season. Then they have 1 receiver over 500 yards on the season with 13 touchdowns in the air.
Yeah, and they score a lot. They average 42 points a game. So, that's what I'm saying. I like your 42 prediction there. I just feel like they haven't played a team that's been up in the Division 5 rankings, and so I just kind of feel like I'm going to give the edge to Argonaut, and it's home game. They played the last week at home against Somerville. They've got some things going on offense, and I think that they can keep the ball away from Valley Christian enough to kind of keep the score closer. So we'll see.
All right, I have 42-17 for Somerville, 42-21 for Valley Christian, but then we come back to the Mother Lode League, in which Sonora travels to Calaveras.
Yeah, and this is one where Sonora hasn't played in a week. Their JV played, but their varsity didn't last week. So I know their varsity is ready to come out and play a game. And Sonora Calaveras is always a great game. They tend to match up pretty well physically. Calaveras gets up to try and beat Sonora, but I don't know if Calaveras has enough. I know they've been getting things going in the right direction, but it's still Sonora, and it's still Sonora rolling. Offensively, they've been putting up points on everybody. I don't see that ending this week in Calaveras. I just don't think their offense has enough to hang with Sonora. Their defense is going to do what they can do, but in the end, I just think they don't have enough yet to hang with Sonora.
And you said at Calaveras, they showed up against Amador. They got the win there. They're peaking at the right time. And the coaches of Somerville said that 2 weeks ago. They're peaking at the right time. They're playing their best football at the end of the season during league play, which is huge. Mm-hmm. And they had a little bit of a lull against Somerville. They still put up 7 points. And I think they're going to do the same thing against Sonora, because there was a few drives that got to that red zone. They got to the goal line. They just couldn't complete it. And Somerville's defense showed up at that moment in time.
Oh, absolutely.
But Calaveras, I think they will find the end zone for at least one time, 7 points. And then I have Sonora winning also with 42 points. And all 3 of my winners this week, 42 points.
Just
That's
going
the
with
number.
the 42, huh? Okay. I have it Sonora 49, Calaveras 14. I think Calaveras finds a way to score twice. And Sonora, like I said, they're averaging a bunch of points. I think they put 49 on Calaveras. And Calaveras really should be looking to Argonaut next week as, hey, we got to beat them. I know you want to try and beat Sonora. At some point, you got to just, hey, if it's not in the cards, you might start looking the next week. And that Calaveras Argonaut game, which didn't look like it was going to be that big of a deal a couple weeks ago, now becomes huge for Calaveras.
Calaveras hosting Sonora 42-7 and 49-14, in which 49-14, Sonora has gotten on the board with 49 points against a league opponent. Before we get into the power rankings as we wrap up our Week 9 preview, you've had a chance to see everyone except for Amador in Mother Lode League play, and I haven't seen Amador or Sonora. I've watched a little bit on NorCal SportsTV, of course, but who would be the MVP candidate as of this point in the season?
Ooh, that's tough. I think Barajas and Hike are both in there. The problem is they play for the same team, so I think that kind of hurts them a little bit. But they're in the top candidates. Sonora, MVP is usually a quarterback-driven award, and the best team, best quarterback, you could go that route. I think they have the top 3 candidates. the running back at Sonora.
Howdy, Peoples.
Yeah, Peoples. He's another option that could go there as well. So I think there's 2 from Sonora. I think there's 2 from Somerville. I think it's really going to come down to that last week of who can show up the best in the Sonora versus Somerville game. Probably is going to end up winning the MVP. Whoever, maybe which team wins that, might skew it that way. But yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting situation. And like I said, I think there's 2, maybe even 3 people from Somerville that could be in the running. But if I was going to give out the award right now, I think I might have to go with Peoples.
Okay.
He kind of stirs everything for Sonora. He sets everything up on the run, and so he might be the guy I have to give it to. And with a tough nod to both the backs from Somerville. If you put them together, they're easily, I think, the MVP.
Yeah.
But you can't tie them together, unfortunately. So Barajas, I think he might even get a little bit more nod over Hike just because he's had a couple defensive scores.
Right.
And so I think that helps too. And then he does the punt return stuff, and he set things up. But Hike's had a couple of kickoff returns. So it's one of those things where I think they really take votes away from each other, unfortunately for them. And that might lean it towards one of the Sonora guys if Sonora can pull off the win against Somerville. If not, then obviously I think it's one of the Somerville guys. So it's kind of, right now, I'd give it to Peoples, but Hike and Barajas both have a chance.
I agree with everything you said. Just took the words out of my mouth, so I'm not going to say anything about that. But yeah, Peoples, Hike, and Barajas are definitely the top 3 candidates. And it's kind of late in the season for anyone else to make their mark and statement since there's so many weeks gone by. But it would be fun to see other players get involved at such a level that we might just consider them for that award.
Right. I mean, and that would be great. Like I said, also the quarterback at Sonora has a chance too. He's a senior. He runs that offense really well. And for some reason, I can't come up with his name right now. Thank you, Crow. Yeah. Okay. He does a great job of running the offense. He's another guy I think that could get in there running, depending on what happens the last 3 weeks of league for them. But yeah, it's going to be interesting.
And now to the power rankings. And I kind of alluded to this in the pre-part of the show, but Sonora, Somerville, still top 2. No changes there. But this is a show about the Mother Lode League, the MLL, and who is at the top of it. And with Calaveras taking down Amador, we have to look at preseason and say, okay, Amador had this fantastic game route and this fantastic road that they traveled through and just dominated every step of the way. But like I said, this is a show about the MLL. And when it comes down to it, Calaveras forcing 6 turnovers against Amador, in which they have struggled, but nobody has taken away the ball 6 times from Amador. That's just something too big that can't be overlooked. And with them beating them, and there's no other chance for Amador to really push above Calaveras again in the next upcoming weeks, Calaveras has slid into my number 3 slot, and Amador Argonaut will finish that way. And the only other thing that can change in the next weeks, that's my final standings in week 9 now, unless Somerville can beat Sonora. That's the only thing that could possibly change. But my final standings are Sonora, Somerville, Calaveras, Amador, Argonaut.
It's interesting. See, for me, it's result-based. So you got to look at Sonora's 1, Somerville's 2. Calaveras, Amador played each other last week. Calaveras won, got the win, regardless of whatever else happened. So they're number 3 in my book. Amador's 4, Argonaut's 5. Now, you're saying Amador has no shot to move up, but I don't agree with that. What if Amador somehow goes up and beats Sonora? Okay, because they've done it. They played them tough before. So if they come out and find a way to beat Somerville and beat Sonora, now you got to move them up. So I think it all depends. Now after this week, yeah, it could be pretty much locked in. But if Amador finds a way to upset Somerville and or Sonora, you got they're right there back in the mix for the league title. It could be a four-way tie for first place in the league. I mean, who knows? That's why you love Friday Night Football. You never know what's going to happen. You can think what's going to happen. You can kind of expect what's going to happen. But until they start playing the game on Friday night and until there's zeros on the clock, you just never really know.
I think it's going to stay that way.
Okay. I'm not arguing with you. I'm just trying to be the guy that says, hey, Amador still's got a shot.
All right. Yeah, so you moved yours as well.
I did, yeah. Calaveras beats Amador, they jump them.
All right.
For now.
Yeah, we're in the same situation then. This upcoming week, big games at Somerville Amador is going to be my game of the week.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Somerville Amador. And again, I think Somerville has too many weapons for Amador, but I wouldn't count Amador out altogether. Just never know.
I think the turnovers are still going to be a big issue. If
Yep.
they don't allow any, I still think Somerville will win, but it's definitely going to be a more tough game. And
I agree. I think if Amador doesn't turn the ball over, it could be tighter than we think it is. But I expect Amador to turn the ball over 3+ times against Somerville, and that's going to be what ultimately leads to Somerville pulling away and getting more possessions, more points on the board.
NorCal Sports TV will be bringing you the Somerville Amador game, so make sure you tune in Friday night for that game. I'll be there. Jeremy, you won't be there.
I know, I took the night off. It's one of those, it's only Friday of the football season I take off. This one had something going on with the family. I said, okay, I'll take the day off. And so, yeah, I'll be checking in though. Don't worry. I'll be looking on the phones, making sure I know what's going on.
Yeah, you got to make sure you do your research.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I got stuff going on, but it's later in the evening, so I'll be able to check out some scores and then check in with you every now and I might have to say hi on the broadcast and everything. So.
Somerville at Amador on NorCal Sports TV this Friday, 7 o'clock. Valley Christian at Argonaut and Sonora at Calera. Those are your 3 Mother Lode League matchups for this week number 9. And it's coming down to the final few weeks. We'll see who is atop the Mother Lode League for the last time in this 8-group period.
Absolutely. Can't wait. Excited.
All right, Jeremy, thanks once again. I'm Levi Flores. We'll see you next week for Strength